Hello, everybody, and welcome to my 2024 to 2025 preliminary winter forecast.
So take a look here. We're going to start out taking a look at NOAA and the models for our ENSO forecast. And we look at this to figure out what kind of winter we're going to be in. Now, ENSO it's built up from three different phases. You have El Nino, neutral, and La Nina. And these three phases can really shape our winter in much different ways. They really do cause a big impact on what we see out here during the winter time on in the United States. So we look at what NOAA is showing for our ENSO forecast, and what NOAA is showing is that we could go into a La Nina as we go into fall. So you can see as we get into later into September, into October, and into November, that La Nina chance really starts to go up, and we already have about a 65% chance shown by NOAA of a La Nina developing by mid to late September, and then as you get later into the season, later into fall, by November, you have about a 75% chance of a La Nina developing. So that is a sign, a signature for at least what I would think is a weak to moderate La Nina. All right, and as you can see, as we get into the winter season, that chance for La Nina really starts to go down drastically, and we get into December. That bar is already going down, but it's really nothing too crazy. It's a much slower decline than what the models are showing. We'll take a look at that in just a moment. As you can see, as we get into January, all right, that neutral phase probability bar really starts to go up, and you can see that it's really just a matter of time before we find ourselves into a neutral phase if this were to play out. But by the time we get to January, it's about a 40% chance of a neutral phase developing. Then look at February, kind of flips the script there. You got a 50% chance of a neutral phase rather than a La Nina by the time we get into mid to late winter. So it seems like we're going to enter winter as a weak to moderate La Nina if NOAA's forecast were to play out, and then we'd kind of flip over to a near neutral phase, near neutral pattern as we get into January and February. Now, you look at what the models are showing. The models have a little different scenario here. You can see that they do agree on a La Nina developing by the time we get into fall, and they do actually get this up to only about a 50% chance at max into November, rather than what NOAA was showing. And NOAA right now is showing that we will be in a La Nina with about a 75% chance of that happening. So big difference there, and you can see that that's about a 25% differential there. So it's interesting to see the disagreement there from NOAA and the models, but the models only take this up to about a 50% chance, and then really the decline goes down much faster than what NOAA is showing. We already get to December, and that neutral phase probability really starts to go up, kind of overtakes La Nina. And by the time we get to January, it really does seem like we're going to flip over to a neutral phase, probably, already by then. If this scenario were to play out, we would most likely be in a neutral forecast, neutral phase. All right, but even as we get into February, that bar continues to go up, and you already see about a 65% chance of a neutral phase. So the model's much more aggressive than NOAA on the La Nina, being a little bit weaker and declining quicker, seeing that neutral phase probability go up. But NOAA really wants that La Nina to be a little bit stronger, stay with us a little bit longer into winter. So that's the big disagreement there, and that's gonna kind of shape what we're dealing with as we go into fall and then into winter. But it really does seem like we're going to get some sort of La Nina. It could be before winter, it could be during winter. We'll just have to see and wait to kind of just figure out what's going to play out. So after comparing what the models and what NOAA was showing for our ENSO forecast, it really does seem that we will be in at least a La Nina for fall. Now, going into winter, it seems like we could definitely have a real chance of going into at least a weak to moderate La Nina. So you see, take a look here at what a La Nina typically looks like during the winter. We get that variable polar jet stream to dip into the northern United States. We get cooler air that comes down from Canada into parts of the upper Midwest, the high plains out there in the north central United States. We usually see wetter and warmer conditions across sections of the Ohio Valley, but You see that colder air and the wetter conditions across the Midwest. That really does call for a potentially snowier winter if this were to play out. And also take a look at that variable polar jet stream when I mentioned earlier. That's going to vary, so it's not going to be in that exact spot obviously during the winter. So we could definitely get deeper shots of cold air, meaning that we could see that jet stream dip a little bit farther south, bring that cooler air to areas that right now are looking warmer than average on this map here. But you can see usually what we get is we get drier and warmer conditions in the southern United States, especially down near the Gulf Coast. All right, but even up the East Coast, we do usually get warmer conditions during a La Nina winter. Now, we also do have the potential for a neutral phase to develop, a neutral pattern. All right, we saw that from NOAA and the models. NOAA being a little bit less aggressive on that neutral phase developing, but the models really want by January and February having a neutral phase develop. And you can see what happens in a neutral phase. It does actually look quite similar to what La Nina looks like. But that polar jet stream actually does hang much farther south than La Nina, and that does bring cooler air also a little bit farther to the east, but that would bring much cooler conditions to the northeast, the Great Lakes, and still the Midwest, getting very cold conditions. So if this were to play out during January and February, obviously, those are the coldest months of the year. So with this pattern in play as well, we could really get some big time snowstorms if everything comes together. Obviously, if this were to play out for the Great Lakes, the Northeast, and the Midwest, but we still see wet and warm conditions a little bit further south, so still in the southern United States. We get a little bit of a stronger subtropical jet stream, so that would bring storms farther to the south, meaning that we would see rather a wet winter out for areas in the south central United States, and also for the Gulf Coast. But that would also bring some potential coastal storms and potential nor'easters. So, I think a neutral winter pattern would definitely support a snowy winter out there in the Northeast, and also a very cold winter out and snowy winter, obviously, out there in the Midwest. But it really does seem like either way, we could definitely get some big time snowstorms out there in the Midwest, the Great Lakes region. But there is definitely a big difference between Enzo and La Nina, and this is what we could see if this Enzo pattern would play out. Obviously, those wetter conditions, the warmer conditions out there in the south central or in the Gulf Coast region could definitely support severe weather, especially across like the Dixie Alley and stuff. And areas around there, so definitely something to watch out for. But if this plays out once again, looks like it could definitely be a very active winter. So now we're going to go ahead and compare this year's Enzo forecast and what we saw during the 2016 and 2017 winter. All right, these two winters are very similar as far as what the pattern was, at least leading up to winter, and also what the Enzo forecast was. So starting out here, we're just taking a look at what our Enzo forecast is. Obviously, we went over this. We have the La Nina probability going into fall, and then that El Nino or the neutral phase probability really starts to go up during January, February, and then later in the year. All right, but you look at something that's very useful to look at. You look at the model predictions. This is kind of a spread chart to see where kind of how strong of a La Nina they're expecting. So you can see these are SST anomalies based off of what each and every model is showing. So you look at the green line here. This green line shows us the average between all of the models that you have here on your chart, and you can see that as we get into about January, we have about an average of about 0.25 degrees below average. That is a very weak La Nina. It's either a very weak La Nina or it's just a neutral phase. So you can see that even into early winter, that we could already be at a neutral phase. So that's very interesting to see that from the models there. But you can see, just that, with the spread chart, you can see that a lot of them are expecting to stay around the 0 to 0.5 degrees below average anomaly there with the SSTs out there in the Pacific. All right, so this is very interesting to look at because you take a look now at the 2016 Enzo forecast. We take a look currently at just the bar chart here showing you the probabilities. And as you can see, we do have La Nina going into fall, and you can see that was a weak to moderate La Nina. And then as we get or as we went into winter, you can see by January we had a neutral phase starting to kind of shape up there. And there you go. By February, this actually lines up pretty perfectly with what NOAA is forecasting this year. All right, we were expecting about a 50, 55, 53% chance of going into a neutral phase by February. If you compare this to what NOAA is showing right now, it looks almost exactly the same. So very, very similar ENSO forecast probabilities that we see between this year and from the 2016 to 2017 winter. And you can see that if we go to this little chart here that you see with what the models are predicting as far as what our SSTs will look like, look how similar it looks. The average is a little bit lower, so it seems almost as if, when we went into January and February, we were at more or less a weak La Nina. So there it is, that average being at about 0.54 degrees Celsius. That is just counting as a weak La Nina, but more or less just a neutral phase. So if you go back in the video and you take a look at what this year is showing for this spread this sheet or this chart that you see here from the models, it almost looks identical, almost looks exactly the same. So very, very similar pattern kind of setting up here for winter between this winter and 2016 to 17. So that's why we're going to take a look at what we saw during the winter of 2016 to 17 to maybe get an idea of what could possibly happen this winter. So now we'll just go ahead and take a look at our national snowfall analysis. This is our total accumulation, our total snowfall for everybody in the country for the winter of 2016 to 2017. You can see that we saw very above average snowfall here. We'll start in the Northeast. Look at this. We saw multiple feet of snow in pretty much every location here, and you can see even to southern New England, we saw anywhere from 3 to 6 feet of snow, which was pretty crazy because the last few winters haven't been too crazy, especially for these coastal regions. It was definitely crazy in the winter of 2016. We had so much snow come down, just winter storm after winter storm. You could see the interior Northeast even had more. Some of these areas in upstate New York saw upwards of 10 feet of snow. So really crazy to see how we saw a very above average lake effect snow season out there, and you can see that did continue into the Midwest. Midwest also got very above average snowfall totals out there, with the upper Midwest seeing a few feet of snow as well. All right, we saw big time winter storms. I don't know if you guys remember Winter Storm Jonas. That impacted the Northeast. That brought a few feet of snow to some areas. All right, but you could just see a huge swath of feet of snow was seen across this region. And you can see also in the western United States, we saw above average mountain snow with a lot of areas, all those upper elevations getting upwards of 50 feet of snow, which was pretty bizarre. But, with the upper elevations, all right, a winter like this could definitely bring big time snow totals, and that's what you got here. But we did see snow pretty far south as well, even sections of the Dixie Alley, the deep south. Got in on some of that snow. You could see some very spotty areas, even into Louisiana, seeing snow. And also into Mississippi, Alabama, just the entire southern United States was actually did have the chance to see some snow, about 1 to 2 inches totaling there. All right, but I would say that this is definitely a very active snow season, very active winter here for the United States. And remember, this is the same winter that we compared, last section of the video. So this is what can happen with the setup we have now. And it was just a very big time winter that we saw during the winter of 2016. Another thing to consider looking at is something called the North Atlantic Oscillation. All right, this is what it looks like when it's in the negative phase. This is just a kind of setup that would definitely support snowfall, above average snow in the country. So this doesn't happen. This doesn't happen like season long. This is something that can happen during the season. But what you can see is that this would actually line up and work well with the dip in the jet stream that we're going to have with La Nina coming in. You can see that during the negative phase of the North Atlantic Oscillation, we get cooler air that comes down from Canada. It surges down into the eastern half of the United States. That includes some areas of the Midwest, Or you've got all of the Ohio Valley, all of the Northeast, and even some of the Southeast getting in on some of that cooler air. All right, you've got a massive dip in the jet stream, and the reason you got this is because you have a blocking high pressure system that is located just off the coast of Atlantic Canada, and that pretty much builds up a ridge that goes up towards Greenland, and basically that will result in a dip in the jet stream that is pretty significant. That will bring big time cold air. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because this could definitely line up. This could happen and work well with our La Nina pattern, because obviously we do typically see dips in the jet stream during a La Nina into the north central United States. And now with the North Atlantic Oscillation, that dip in the jet stream usually just shifts a little bit farther east and then goes a little bit farther south as well. So, this is definitely something that could definitely happen this winter, and I think that this would definitely bring at least a stretch of some above average snowfall here to the country. After looking at all this research and information, I'm ready to present my preliminary 2024 to 2025 winter season forecast. So starting out here, we're going to take a look at our temperature forecast that you've got on your screen. You can see in the Pacific Northwest, in that teal shade, I'm expecting slightly below average temperatures. That does include areas of Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington State. I do think we're going to enter the winter with a weak to moderate La Nina, and I do think that's going to be a big influence on what this winter is going to look like. And that does bring us over to our next section here. In that dark blue shade, I'm expecting below average temperatures. I really do think we're going to see the polar jet stream be shifted farther south, and then I think we're going to see some big time Arctic blasts move through this region. So I am expecting far below average temperatures out there. That's including areas of the Midwest and also over towards the interior Northeast, sections of Ohio out there, the Great Lakes, and sections of the Dakotas as well. All right, and then you can see in between, these two zones here, these two different zones of above and below average temperatures, I do have an area where I'm expecting near average temperatures to kind of occur. I do think we're going to see most of the California, Nevada, Arizona, Utah area experience near average temperatures. That's in the gray shade. That kind of continues to move throughout the middle part of the country, and then you can see going pretty much right up the into the Northeast. I'm expecting pretty much near average temperatures. All right, this could definitely change because this is only my preliminary forecast, but I do think that we're most likely going to see at least near average temperatures. Notice, though, that there will be some areas that will see at times below average temperatures, especially if you're closer to, let's say, my below average temperature zone. All right, so if you're in southern Illinois and you're in my near average zone, but you're close to the below average zone, all right, that means that could definitely bring you some below average temperatures. So, just be aware of that. All right, but going down into the southern United States, you can see for pretty much all of the Gulf Coast into all the rest of the deep south, you can see I'm expecting above average temperatures. I think we're going to see a very, very warm winter. I think we're going to see almost record-breaking warm at some points. I think we're going to see just very warm temperatures across the board for areas of the Dixie Alley. You got Arkansas up there, Louisiana, Georgia, Florida, Texas, and then areas of extreme southern New Mexico, Arizona, and California. All right, this could definitely go a little bit farther north. We'll just kind of have to see how this plays out. But I really do think that we are definitely going to see at least above average temperatures for the southern United States. And you can see of another zone with slightly above average temperatures going on out there in the Carolinas, into sections of Virginia, Delmarva, and just up the east coast towards New York City and southern New England. I'm expecting slightly above average temperatures as well. All right, so I really do think that we're probably going to see the warm sector, the southeastern ridge, that pesky ridge that usually forms during the winter. I think that's going to bump up pretty far north, but obviously we could definitely get some Arctic blasts that kind of push it a little bit farther south. But if you're in the light yellow shade, that is where I'm expecting slightly above average temperatures. So now we take a look here at my precipitation forecast. All right, you can see in the Pacific Northwest, I'm expecting above average precipitation. I think it's going to be a very, very wet winter out there. All right, obviously, for those upper elevations, that could definitely result in cold and snowy weather, with, the above average precipitation. But I do think that we could definitely see a ton of rainfall out there. I think it's going to be a very active season as far as precipitation goes. And you can see also in the Great Lakes region, also does go down into the interior northeast. I'm expecting at least slightly above average precipitation. I do think that with La Nina's influence on the winter, I think we're definitely going to get at least some above average precipitation out there, especially down into the Ohio Valley sections of the interior northeast. Really a big possibility for that to happen. Now look at the southwestern United States, the desert southwest. I'm expecting below average precipitation. I think we are going to be in a season-long drought. I think we're going to see very, very dry conditions out there. Normally dry, so looks like a pretty boring winter for you guys out in New Mexico, Arizona, southern Utah, Nevada, California. All right, obviously some of those upper elevations could definitely get in on some snow, but it could definitely be below average. I really just think, once again, with La Nina's influence, we could definitely get some drier than average conditions, and that does continue on into the deep south, rest of the Gulf Coast out there, and just the southern United States in general. In the tan shade, I'm expecting slightly below average precipitation. All right, I think that that will definitely kind of bring towards us a little bit of a less active severe weather season that we usually get in this area during the winter. However, I do expect some possible severe weather events that come with any storms that bring precipitation a little bit farther south. So we'll talk about that a little bit later in the video. But overall, across the board, I really don't think that we're going to see above average precipitation at all across any areas across the southern United States. Yet the northern United States, I'm pretty much expecting above average precipitation. And then obviously, if you're in the gray shade, I'm expecting near average precipitation this winter. So finally, we go over here to the big map. All right, the map that everyone's probably looking forward to seeing. This is my official snowfall forecast for this year. All right, as you can see, we'll start out in the Pacific Northwest. I'm expecting above average snow this winter. I really do think that with those dips in the jet stream, with the higher precipitation anomalies, I really do think that that's all just going to come together, and I really do think that we're probably going to see at least slightly below average snowfall out there, pretty much extending all across this area, especially for those upper elevations. I think we're going to see some very above average mountain snowfall out there. So if you're in the upper elevations of the Pacific Northwest, you're going to have a good winter. I'm going to say that right now. I really do think that there's a good chance we're going to get some big time snowfall out there. And then you go over here to the other region here in this purple shade. All right, this is where I'm expecting above average snowfall as well. I think we're going to see a much above average snowfall actually, because we're going to get, I think, big time Arctic blast. We're going to get really cold air that's going to hang down from Canada. And the farther north you go, obviously, the more cold air you could get. So if you're in the Great Lakes region, if you're in the upper Midwest, I think you're going to have an excellent winter as far as snow goes. I think you're going to see a lot of big time winter storms. All right, I think that we could definitely get a few blizzards, few just really significant winter storms. That does go into sections of the interior northeast as well. But I really do think it's going to be a very active winter out there, especially across the Great Lakes region. Man, I really do think that we are going to get a 2016 to 2017 like winter, at least potentially out there in that region, just with La Nina's influence. Now, if you're in the gray shade, you're in the near average zone for my snowfall outlook. All right, this could definitely change. And note also, if the closer you are to a region, like a different area, we'll say like New York City is close to the above average zone for snowfall. All right, that does mean that there is also a smaller chance that you could also have at least a slightly above average season for snow, if you get what I'm talking about here, if you get what I mean. All right, but you can see also I do have a below average spot for snow. I think that's going to be pretty much the case for everybody in the southern United States, stretching all the way from pretty much Virginia, the Carolinas, down into the Tennessee Valley, Dixie Alley, and going on down there into Texas and the rest of the desert Southwest. I think a lot of these areas will even see no snow at all. And that does actually bring us to our other area where I am expecting absolutely no snow. I apologize if you're a snow fan out there. I know some of you guys probably are, because you almost never get snow out there. But I really do think for coastal Texas, Louisiana, pretty much the entire Gulf Coast, and for the rest of southern Texas, I'm sorry, guys. I think it's just going to be too warm out there for snow. So hopefully next year. But that's pretty much my thoughts on this year's snowfall forecast. So now we take a look at our severe weather forecast that we've got here for the country this winter. All right, I don't think it's going to be a very active severe weather season that we usually get during the winter. I think we will definitely have a few events that could bring severe weather. You could see I have pretty much all of the country highlighted in the gray shade, meaning that we're probably going to see none or no severe weather to very little severe weather. But I do think, though, in that red shade, I think that parts of the Dixie Alley, the Gulf Coast, there may be some severe weather events. However, I do expect a few severe weather outbreaks to occur, maybe one or two significant severe weather outbreaks. All right, but obviously, with the below average precipitation, that could definitely work against, seeing a above average severe weather season. But I do think that definitely those warmer conditions could bring in some, enough moisture to spark some severe weather. So I do think that we'll see some severe weather, just not nearly as active as what we've seen in past years. But I definitely do think in the red shade you can expect some severe weather this winter. And finally, my finished product here. This is just the main forecast, the overall forecast for this winter. We'll start out here in the Pacific Northwest. If you're in the mint shade, the kind of the greenish blue shade, I'm expecting typical mountain snow. All right, this is a preliminary forecast, so remember this could change. I think we're going to see a very active snow season out there for those upper elevations. Even the other sections of the Pacific Northwest could definitely get in on some of that big time snowfall. But I'm expecting anywhere from really Colorado all the way up to Washington State to see some typical mountain snow out there. All right, you go over to the upper Midwest in that purple shade. I'm expecting snowy conditions with major Arctic blasts. I think we're going to see huge Arctic blasts, as a matter of fact. I think we're going to see big time cold shots. I think we're really going to see just a very cold, snowy winter, just a classic winter out there. This is a non-hype channel. I'm not hyping this up. I just really personally think that we're probably going to see an above average winter as far as snow goes. So that's my thoughts out there for you guys in the Midwest. And then you look at this red shade here that I've got for areas of pretty much upstate New York down into Pennsylvania and sections of northeastern Ohio. This is where I'm expecting huge lake effect snowstorms, all right? Usually with La Nina, you get low pressure systems that go a little bit farther north. That's going to help out you guys with the precipitation, and then also you're pretty much you're north enough to definitely see those colder than average or just very cold conditions. So those two factors kind of come together to really support a big lake effect snow season. I think we're going to see another big season with lake effect snowstorms. If you're in the light blue shade, I'm expecting snowy conditions with cold shots that kind of goes from Kansas all the way through sections of the Ohio Valley, Appalachian Mountain region, and all the way into the Northeast up towards Maine. I think it's going to be a pretty average season, but I do think we're going to see some snowy conditions with cold shots out in that region. Now, in the pink shade, this is where I have my winter wild card. This is where I think that, going back towards that NAO phase that I talked about earlier in the video, if we were to see a big enough dip in the jet stream and a storm system move through, we could definitely get a few snowstorms in this region. A few meaning like 1 to 2 minor to moderately strong or significant, I should say, winter storms. I think it's certainly possible. Now, it's a wild card area because all of that could definitely not happen. We could just see a very, snowless winter. So this is where, I'm a little kind of on edge here. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but there's definitely possibility for a snowstorm or two to roll through this region. Now you look at sections of the East Coast side here in this hot pink area. You can see going up from pretty much Boston down over towards the Virginia coastline, pretty much the entire I-95 corridor in general. I'm expecting nor'easters. I think we're going to get a few nor'easters this season. I think, we could definitely see a slightly amplified Pacific jet stream with the neutral phase coming on. I do think we're going to get a few nor'easters. Now, I don't think it's all going to be snow. I think we're going to see mixed types of precipitation. I think we're going to see some nor'easters bring snowfall. Some could definitely bring, frozen precipitation. But I think overall we're probably going to stick to rain, especially if you're towards the coastline. But definitely some snow mixed in with there. I think we could definitely have the potential still for a pretty big winter for you guys. I know you haven't had a huge winter in a few years, but I really do think the coastal regions could get back into the swing of things with this winter, and I do think that some nor'easters could definitely bring some pretty promising snowfall. Now, you look at the desert southwest. This includes areas of California, southern Nevada, Utah, Colorado, you've got Arizona, New Mexico, and also areas of Texas going up towards the Panhandle. All right, you can see I'm expecting very warm and dry conditions. I think that it's just going to be a boring winter, right? All I gotta say is that we're gonna see very warm conditions with those above average temperatures, and I think we're gonna see very dry conditions. So, pretty boring winter. I think it's gonna be very dry, potentially a significant drought out there. So, that's all I'm expecting. That's my thoughts for you guys. And finally, for the southeastern United States, I'm expecting warm and mild conditions. I think it's actually going to be a pretty nice winter. It's going to be a boring one, but I do think it's going to be a pretty nice winter. It may actually feel like spring for a lot of you guys, especially down in Florida. I think it's going to be pretty warm, and also down obviously into the Gulf Coast. But those are my winter thoughts. So that's going to wrap up the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, so please consider leaving a like on the video. Please consider subscribing to the channel. I do post weather updates very frequently for the entire country, so I'll be doing that this winter. I'll be updating you guys on any snowstorm that moves through. All right, but I worked very hard on this forecast. I worked very hard on this winter on this video, so please consider subscribing to the channel. We're getting closer and closer to 1,000 subscribers, so I'm hoping we'll hit 1,000 soon. But once again, that's all I got for you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.